everybody.
Yeah.
And thank you for meeting with me today, by the way. You guys look lovely.
Thank you so much.
Okay, awesome. So my first question is actually to Miss Hadera. I hope I'm pronouncing your first name right.
Yeah. Ilfanesh.
Ilfanesh. Okay. So my first question to you is, would you consider the real Mammy Johnson submissive or headstrong when it comes to Bumpy and his decisions?
No, I mean, I wouldn't call her submissive at all. I think obviously, you know, one could call her that because she's a housewife, maybe because she's I mean, no, I mean, there's no world in which you call her submissive. If anything, she's, she runs both the household and acts as an advisor to him. There's really no world in which she bites her tongue or really sits back and I mean, the question has kind of thrown me because it's as far as Mamie Johnson, far away from her as I could imagine a woman being. She's a take charge, intelligent, free thinking partner who operates on an equal platform to Bumpy in their relationship and outside of the home.
She does. She has her own different organizations. She works closely with Adam Clayton and Powell. But she definitely, I would consider her headstrong as well too.
Yeah, she's headstrong and powerful and ambitious. His rock and his backbone. I think takes care of the home when she needs to be, which maybe someone could consider taking a submissive role, but I think anyone who's a homemaker and a career woman and a mother knows that there's nothing submissive about any of those roles.
I would have to agree with that one. As I became a big fan of Father of Harlem, there isn't much online that I found of Elise Johnson. So when you did accept this role for her, how was you able to prepare to play Elise?
Well, a lot of it was what the writers set up for us in the first season and their plan for Elise in that first season. And I read Mamie Johnson's book, which was very helpful in just getting an idea of what their family life was like, what their house was like. I think I also did a lot of research about heroin addiction and growing up in just on the streets. I think the backstory that we built for Elise had her being on the streets when she was 11, 12. She was very young. So that was most of what she knew. That was most of her life. And so doing a lot of homework and research around what it's like to be on the streets and live on the streets and what that turns you into. And then also just really getting into the Nation of Islam and how it worked with people who had a heroin addiction, whether they went back or not, all of the help that they gave all the people during that time, and just sort of really finding that spiritual difference that happens when she goes from being on the streets to being in the Nation of Islam, and how much that saved her and how much it changes her and how much it doesn't, which I think more and more we start to see as the seasons move on. So I think it was just a lot about taking what was set up for Elise during the first season, which was a great and beautiful arc that I really loved playing, and just running with all of it.
Nice. And this question will be for both of you guys, actually. Will the viewers ever get to know the backstory of Elise's mom or Margaret's dad in season 3? Or the seasons to come?
Not in season 3, but it's we have ideas. So there's a strong possibility that is something that comes up.
That's probably a world that Mamie doesn't want to explore. Who needs Elise's mom in the picture? I feel like they've got enough to contend with without the other first woman. I think Chris Brancato and Paul Eckstein kind of joke about Mamie maybe being the third wife, right? Bumpy's already figured it out, kind of.
Yeah.
And decided to go maybe a little younger, as wealthier, more successful bachelors tend to do.
I don't think we'll ever figure out who Margaret's dad is. Again, I say Elise is from the streets, so I don't know that is a mystery that will be figured out. But I do think there is a possibility that Mama pops up at some point.
Yeah, because it wasn't really feeling, at least at first, for her becoming in as Margaret's mom. I think that was season 1, season 2. So for
that was
them
basically our journey all season 1, where our conflict was with one another in those conflicting roles.
Absolutely.
Conflicting but same.
Yeah, I remember Mammy pulled the gun out on her when she was like, when she went to come
Not
back
her
to me.
finest moment.
Yes.
But I do think it's very important to differentiate, like, Mamie having a problem with the woman Elise and
Yes.
having a problem with her entire relationship, or her kind of seeming like her entire relationship with Margaret was on the line. It was just these butting heads because they both wanted to be this one woman for Margaret, right? There's one mama, and we know that's not true. I mean, we look at the way
Right.
families, there is no such thing. Traditional families are, what is that, right? But I think, her gut was to keep her daughter near, and she threatened that, at least threatened that.
And I think more than I've heard as feedback from other people, I understand having someone come into your home who is a drug addict, who is saying, oh, come and give me my child. And you're like, no, that is my child and I will keep them safe. And you're not going to have them on the streets. Like, I know what that looks like. And Mamie, more than most people, knows exactly what that looks like and really wants to protect her child. And I get that, I do. And I just think that maybe later, when Elise is doing a lot better, there could have been more leniency. But I get in the beginning really wanting to protect your child from something you see as just purely dangerous.
No, she was operating from a place of fear, I
Yeah.
think, more than anything else, Mamie. But yeah,
Yeah,
this is a revolution, and I think they evolved in a nice and organic way.
Absolutely.
Maybe a little slow going in the first season, but
The writers did a good job with like making it such a realistic thing, because that happens a lot often. Someone is raising another woman's child, they clean up, it's like, all right, can we trust you? Like, are you gonna go back to the streets? It's very scary. And to evolve a kid, their mind is so innocent, and it could go so dark by witnessing these type of actions. So I think they did a really good job portraying that role on TV.
Absolutely.
So this another question for both of you guys. How would you guys describe Bumpy Johnson in your own words?
oh gosh, I mean, Bumpy Johnson. It doesn't get any realer in terms of humanity than Bumpy, right? And complex, conflicted individuals. We are made up of dualities, good, bad, whatever good, traditional good and bad means. He takes from his community, but he gives back. He is a complicated man. He is well read and studied, could be a doctor or a lawyer if given other opportunities in his life, but is a man of the streets, so he knows how to operate in both worlds, right? Which is, you got book smarts and real street common sense smarts. So I think he's the kind of best and the worst of it all.
Yeah, a real Robin Hood.
Absolutely. I think he's a survivor. I think the only reason that you don't see Bumpy become a lawyer or a doctor or is because he, one, is a Black man in the 60s, and two, truly does understand a system that is not set up for him, right? Like, he's been through all the different levels of this system constantly. And at every single turn, he understands fundamentally that system is not set up for him to succeed, but he is meant he knows in his soul he is meant to be a great man. And so he does everything he needs to be that great man. And sometimes that means robbing and stealing and doing terrible things. But the government is doing the same thing. The system is doing the same thing. And he didn't reinvent the wheel. He made it work for somebody it was never supposed to work for. And there's a tragedy in that, right? There's something sad about the fact that he had to do terrible things and ruin lives, but he tries to, in every way he can, save as many lives as he can. He tries to give back and change those things, because in the future, hopefully the other Bumpy, the new Bumpy, the one coming up, doesn't have to do the same things he did, can have a better start than he did. So I think it's very complicated.
Yeah, you could also call him a master rationalizer.
Absolutely.
He's very good at rationalizing maybe wrong things, but also, the interesting thing about him is that he's not some hardened criminal. He made his way from nothing, grew up on the streets. The real Bumpy Johnson, like, if you know any of his backstory, like, clawed his way to the top, and has to be really brutally violent in some circumstances, but it's also like a beautiful, compassionate, giving, generous, warm family man. It's like he's really in some ways living these. And it's funny that we talk about this because episode 5, you see these two distinct sides of Bumpy. That's basically the whole episode is him taking a look inwards and realizing that like maybe his perception of self is different than other people's perception of him, and like what that means for him, and his, you know, who he thinks, who he sees himself as a man. And it's really like just such a nuanced portrayal of a very complicated guy.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, are you talking about the episode when he had to save Malcolm and also try to find a new route for the heroine?
Oh,
Yeah, that was definitely, because you know that's him. He didn't know what to do, and I feel like the writers choosing that episode to do that because it was also the civil rights movement. There was a riot going on, and he had to do what's best. He had to save Malcolm, and if he didn't save Malcolm, who knows what ending he would have had, you know? I have two more questions if I can fit them in. One of the questions is, what is the most significant part of season 3 to you?
Well, there's so much. I mean, it's all significant. None of it is by accident. None of it is like, you know, each storyline could be its own episode. And if we're talking relationships, if we're talking about plot lines,
I don't want to give anything away.
I know it's hard to answer.
Is the hard part of that question. You're not gonna you tried it. You tried it, but you're not gonna catch me. Here's the thing though. I think what's really interesting about this season is that you really see the crossover in all the parts of Harlem that I think have been bubbling from the beginning. You see the CIA, you see the FBI, you see everything happening with the Black rights movement, you see the criminal underground, you see the music and the dancing, you see the Cuban mafia and all the things happening with sort of Latin America that's moving around Harlem and Black America and Harlem. You see the Italian mafia. You really see the convergence of all these things, and you can feel how much tension there is. And there's something very exciting about all of it, but it's also very dangerous and very terrifying. And I think it makes for a very, very exciting season.
Well said.
You thought it that way. I didn't realize that it was building up because during that time, I believe they call it now Spanish Harlem, but Pleasant Avenue was mainly Italians, and now we are getting the Spanish portion of it with the Cubans coming into this season. Oh wow, I didn't realize that. That's dope. I'm actually now, so.
It's like there was a master plan. It's like the writers knew that they were going to end up here somehow. But that's the beautiful thing about getting a third season. You know, a lot of shows get clipped before they can even, you know, grow and be what they're meant to be. And first season, you're setting everything up, you're establishing relationships and who these people are. Mm-hmm. Second season, okay, you're starting to weave things together a little bit. But by a third season, right, you have actors who are coming back knowing who they are in these characters, right? And then you have these storylines that you can kind of like start to connect the dots. So it makes for something like, I think for viewers, very satisfying, because you can look back onto season 1 and think, oh my God, they were laying the groundwork for all of this. And this is where we're going. Like, let's go.
Yeah. I recap every season. Like whenever season 2 was coming out, I rewatched season 1 to connect the dots. And when season 3 came out, season 2, just because I like to refresh my mind. Like this, and you know, it's just a storytelling, it's actual stories and events. So just watching everything, it works out. But let me just move on to my last question. So this is like, I've been waiting to die to talk to you guys. Like I have everything I want to write out and prepare for you. But, and last but not least, what information did you guys learn being a part of the series that you didn't know before about the characters?
About the characters.
I personally learned so much about Harlem that has been so beautiful. The number of people who operated outside of Harlem, especially in the 60s, is even now to this day. If you just track the lineage of people who come out of Harlem, including our own Ilfina Shadera, the amazing amount of talent and beauty, and just it's really stunning. Even if you go to Harlem now today, you can feel it. You can walk around the streets. If you get off of those main streets, you can see all these neighborhoods where people still live, still have their fronts. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful place with such a rich culture and history. So for me, that's been one of the biggest blessings about working on the show, is just learning so much about this truly, wonderfully, beautifully rich Black space. Yeah, I love it.
And I'll kind of piggyback on that, and just, you know, you hear, you know, maybe a little bit about who Bumpy Johnson is if you've watched, you know, Hoodlum or American Gangster or something like that, but you never really understand what that means for a guy like Bumpy Johnson, right? So you don't connect a lot of connect the dot talk today. But you're thinking, this is a guy who lived in Harlem in 1965. It's like, who everybody knew one another. So that Bumpy is out socializing with Amy Vanderbilt, right? You think about what that means, the Vanderbilts, like in what world, in any
Right.
other place would Bumpy be out and about with women of her ilk? And then you think it's because everybody was coming uptown to Harlem, right? So it's this like real melting pot within a melting pot of all of these ideas and thoughts and lives that existed at this really, really specific time in history. So to, obviously the writers have taken some creative license, but just to go in your imagination and think about what a Harlem looked like, where Bumpy was, knew Malcolm X, passed him on the street, was friendly and went to the church services of Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Like just so many, it's just like, it's a total kind of mind. I'm not gonna say that, but
Do you see them in real life? You're Google searching them and it's like, wow, like they are actually, working together. Like Malcolm X talking to talking at Adam Clayton Powell's church. Like you would never know that they had to do that. It was just politics. They had to do it to get something done, whatever the case may be. And they kind of didn't really like each other. So it's kind of funny seeing that, like, wow, they put all their issues aside to come together as one. So like you said, it is a beautiful thing, especially I'm living in New York right now. I'm staying in East Harlem, Spanish Harlem is what they call it. So seeing these things on TV is honestly, it's beautiful. It's history.
It is history. Hopefully it, invigorates some people to dig a little deeper and show a little bit more interest in Harlem history and civil rights and, history of Black people in this country too.
Yes.
Both inside and outside of the community.
I absolutely agree. Well, that's all the questions I have for you guys today. Again, thank you so much for speaking with me. You answered everything I wanted to know. Hopefully by the end of next season, I'll have some more questions for you guys.
Amazing.
So nice talking to you.
Very nice talking to you too. Have a good evening.
You too.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Great.